So this is Keli Shalach Issa. In English, they call it non-absolute Muktzeh. And then there is the absolute Muktzeh, which is different types of absolute Muktzeh. And we started to discuss the type of Muktzeh Machmas Gufay. One of the types of absolute Muktzeh is Muktzeh Machmas Gufay, as the title Muktzeh, because you're not allowed to move it even for its space, or if you want to move it, to use it in a permitted way. So, Machmas Gufay, we said many different examples: money, stones, construction material, the raw foods that are not edible, the handle comes out of the door. These are all absolute Muktzeh. We spoke about the buttons. We said that new buttons, a pack of new buttons is questionable, and what status it is it absolute or non-absolute? If a button falls off and you plan to actually put back that button after Shabbos, then that button will retain its status of a garment, and it will not be muktzeh at all, just like the garment itself. We discussed that if the door comes off the china cabinet, then you plan to repair it after Shabbos. If it's not such a professional job, meaning if it requires, if it's a major job, it could be muktzeh. So it's a little tricky. But if, let's say, it could be repaired easily, it's not such a big deal. Maybe you can't because you're not handy, it can be a little handy, but it could be repaired. The screws, whatever, it could be repaired. You plan to repair it, so it retains the status of a china cabinet because it was originally a china cabinet. Now the door came off, but you plan to put it back, so it retains that status of of a permitted item. Even though it's not, right now it's not functional, but when the handle comes out of the door and it's not functional, it was never part of a vessel. A building is not a vessel. Okay, so let's move on. So the next type of muktzeh we're going to discuss is Muktzeh Machmas Chisaron Kis. Muktzeh Machmas means because of. Chisaron Kis. Chisaron means a loss. Kis means pocket. A loss in the pocket. What do you mean a loss in the pocket? It's meaning it's muktzeh because it could be damaged. You don't want to have a loss. You could get yeah. So now, but what does it mean exactly? So it means items that you're very particular about, that you don't want anyone to be doing anything with it because it might come to be damaged. Now, what does it mean that you don't want anyone to do anything because it might become damaged? Items made to be used. So there's different examples. So let's take an example of, let's say you have merchandise for sale. So let's say you have a store downstairs in your basement or whatever. You have a way to go to get into your store on Shabbos from it, whatever. And you want to take out stuff. Let's say a situation where you're able to carry, and you decide you want to take something out of it to use, but it's for sale. Now, if these items are for sale, that means you're particular about anyone doing anything with it, using it, because if it gets damaged or something, you won't be able to sell it. And even though you decide now to take it on Shabbos and decide to keep it, but that's not what it's meant for. Usually people don't do that. So if you have merchandise for sale, that means you are particular about this item, that you don't want anyone using it at all on Shabbos because you want to be able to sell it. So it's muktzeh. So it's muktzeh machmas chisaron kis. Or if you have items that you want to return, you bought items and you plan to return it to the store, you want to get a refund. You don't want anyone opening up the box and doing anything. You won't be able to return it. You're going to go into the store. You're going to look at the box is damaged, this. So you're very particular. So these are items that are in this category because you're particular about it. Because you want to be able to return this item. You want to be able to sell the item. You don't want your kids opening up the boxes that you want to be able to sell. And if you open it up and play with it, you won't be able to sell it. Another example is, let's say you have a very expensive camera or a very expensive item that is both prohibited to be used on Shabbos and also very particular about. So let's take an expensive camera. I mean, these days people don't use cameras so much. I guess maybe professional photographers, they still use cameras. Yeah, used to be you used to use cameras. Now people use their phones all the time. But like my weddings, they have professional camera. Yeah. So let's say a very expensive camera. This person is very particular about it, and no one should use it. No one should be touching it, moving it. Let's say because it's very delicate. So it's not just because it's delicate; it's also because it's you can't use a camera on Shabbos. So it becomes absolute muktzeh because it has no use. It's a camera, and it's very delicate. You don't want anyone to play with it, touching it. So let's say you have expensive china. Expensive china they use in Shabbos. You're going to ask, oh, so that's muktzeh. I can't use my china because it's expensive. No, but that's meant to be used. Something that you can use on Shabbos won't become muktzeh. It's meant to be used. Now, documents, important documents like passport, a driver's license, things like that are also in the category of muktzeh machmas on because people are very particular about it. You're not going to want anyone using it as to hold your place in the safe. They're going to stick it in, leave it around. You don't want anyone touching it, playing with it, and it's not a toy. These are valuable things. These documents, so they become muktzeh machmas on they become absolute muktzeh. Now, something interesting is that blank paper is also in this category, even though we don't think of it this way, because blank paper these days, even though, come on, how much does blank paper cost? It's not so expensive. But halachically, it comes out that it's still in this category because people don't waste paper. People aren't going to use paper to wipe up a spill, blank paper. Even though it's not so expensive, but people are particular about it. They don't use it for anything else. Besides, it's also not a caning. So even though this sounds like it doesn't seem like it fits into the category, but halachically it does. There's discussion on it, but the bottom line is it is in this category that if you have a stash of blank paper, it's in the category of absolute muktzeh. So if you want to use it to hold your place, you're going to take a piece of paper and put it in, you're learning it safely, you want to hold your space, you can't. It's absolute muktzeh. Any questions before we go further?
I'll get to the shoe to hold your place.
Sure. Tickets are meant to be used.
For paper, I usually use it with paper.
And people usually use blank paper to use it as a bookmark. No? If it's next to you, it's sitting around, it's been already around, and but it's already like it's a little different. You already took it. You don't like to take out your stash of go to the count machine, take out blank paper. Yeah, I need paper. I need it for bookmarks. You don't waste paper. No, you're gonna say someone's gonna tell you why you waste the paper, it costs money. Stickers are cheaper, or either use the fine thing, a sticky note, whatever, but paper, it's not used that way. So it's absolutely clear? Okay. Now the next category I want to discuss is Muktzeh machmas mitzvah. Muktzeh machmas mitzvah. It's muktzeh because of mitzvah. Muktzeh because of a mitzvah. I mean, so anything used for a mitzvah becomes muktzeh because it's mitzvah. It's meant to be used. What I mean is like this. Again, all the items of muktzeh we discussed is the general reason why they enacted muktzeh, and then the specifics works according to how much it's removed from your mind to start with, because it has no use, so it becomes muktzeh. So you have, let's say schach on sukkahs. Schach on sukkahs, you're not allowed to use your schach for something else. If you decide on sukkahs, in the middle of Chalamayim, you decide, you know what? You put so much schach on your sukkah, you don't need so much schach. So you decide you're going to take up some schach and make a bonfire with it. But the schach was on your sukkah. I don't need so much. Or I made a few sukkahs. I don't need all these sukkahs. I made 5 sukkahs and a sukkah here, sukkah there. I realized I don't need this sukkah anymore. I'll take the sukkah, I'll make a bonfire. No, you don't know, it's designated for the mitzvah. Because it's designated for the mitzvah, so it has no use. So therefore, when it comes Shabbos, Yom Tov, from Sukkot, it is Muktzeh Machmas Mitzvah. So if a schach falls on the table on Sukkot, Shabbos and Yom Tov, you can't just take the schach and shove it off because it's Muktzeh, it's absolute Muktzeh. Now, we're going to learn later, I may have mentioned another class also, that there are situations where no, I don't think I mentioned it, that if it's really bothering you, there is a leniency, not just a leniency, it's part of Shulchan Aruch, that if it's really annoying you, we will be permitted to move it. We'll discuss it. Another example of Muktzeh Machmas Mitzvah is those who put on sukkah decorations. It's not many Chabad, but some people do it. So all these sukkah decorations, Shulchan Aruch speaks about even hanging food, jugs of wine, jugs of fruits. It's to beautify the sukkah. It becomes muktzeh because it's designated for the mitzvah. Again, it becomes muktzeh on sukkahs, Shabbos, and Yom Tov, not the whole sukkahs, Shabbos, Yom Tov. The lulav is muktzeh. The lulav on sukkahs is muktzeh Shabbos. Not the esrog. Esrog is not muktzeh, just the lulav. You know the reason? The reason is because the esrog, halachically, is not completely removed from your mind, because even though it's designated for the mitzvah, but you're actually allowed to smell it, because its primary function of esrog technically is to eat it. It's a fruit. So it's removed from eating. You're not allowed to eat it, but you're allowed to smell it. Practically, it's not a good idea to smell, because it becomes a question or bracha to say. We're not going into that now. But being that you're allowed to smell it, so the esrog is actually not muktzeh on sukkos. The lulav is, the esrog is not. Okay, next category is Muktzeh Machmas Isur. Muktzeh Machmas Isur. What's an example of that? Muktzeh because it's prohibited. Maybe it's because it's prohibited. Because it's prohibited and it has no, it's dysfunctional. You can't do anything with it because it's prohibited to be used. So it has no function, so it becomes muktzeh. What's an example? If you have a garment that's made out of shatnez, wool and linen mixed together, you know, and wear it, that garment is going to be muktzeh. If you have milk, okay, these examples are not necessarily so practical, but let's say milk that was milked on Shabbos. You're on a farm, you have to milk your cow, so there's halachos that explain you how you ask a non-Jew to do it for you. You can't do it yourself, but you still can't use the milk on Shabbos. Nothing to do because the non-Jew did it for you, even if the non-Jew does it for himself, and it's called Yisrael because you're watching it, you're still not allowed to drink it on Shabbos because it was milk on Shabbos. It's Chacham prohibited it because you might come to milk it yourself. So you're not allowed to drink this milk on Shabbos because you can't drink it on Shabbos. So it's Muktzeh Machmas Isur. Juice that comes out from grapes and olives that came out by itself on Shabbos. Fruits, this may be a little more practical. I'm going to tell you now. Fruits that fall off a tree on Shabbos, a little more practical, I think. In place where there's blueberries, and then you go up to the Catskills, and the fruits on the ground, and fresh fruit that just fell off the tree. You know exactly everything. It's clean and everything. And if it fell off on Shabbos, you're not allowed to eat it. So if you're not allowed to eat it, it has no function, so it becomes muktzeh. Eggs that were laid on Shabbos is muktzeh. Why is it muktzeh? Because you're not allowed to eat the egg that was laid on Shabbos and Yom Tov. You can't eat it on that Shabbos and that Yom Tov, so it is muktzeh. Now, yeah? Clear? Okay. Now, we mentioned yesterday, Muktzeh Machmas Isser Bein Hashmoshes. We put it there. So now this is one category. Then there's another category. Muktzeh Machmas Isser Bein Hashmoshes. Bein Hashmoshes means it's abbreviation for Bein Hashmoshes, which means refers to twilight. Bein means between, Hashmoshes the luminaries, between the sun coming down and the stars coming out. That's what it is. Bein Hashmoshes. Yeah. Huh?
Well, one definition of the one that we just talked about.
What's the mathematician? It's removed from you. It's removed because of prohibition. Because you're not allowed to use it. You're not allowed to wear this garment that's Shabbos. You're not allowed to eat the eggs that are later Shabbos. You're not allowed to eat the fruits that fell off the tree in Shabbos. So it's already removed from the mind to start with, without the prohibition of Muktzeh. It's already removed. So now it becomes Muktzeh, you can't move it. And this is Muktzeh because it's prohibited when Shabbos came in. Because when Shabbos came in, it was Muktzeh, it remains Muktzeh the entire Shabbos. So, practical example, then there is the Leichter. So, to start with, you have the candelabra sitting in the china closet on Shabbos. What's the status of your candelabra that's in your china closet that you did not use on Shabbos? What's its status? Is it absolute Muktzeh? No. Absolute Muktzeh? Why? Because it's an expensive lifetime. It's not dependent just on an expense.
Is there any use for it at all?
Theoretically, you can use it. Why not? It could be used for things.
Oh, no. Yeah, they use it to hold up my book.
It's in the category of non-absolute Muktzeh. Even if it's very expensive, when we discussed Muktzeh Machmas, it's Muktzeh because it's expensive, not just because it's expensive. A car is also very expensive. A lot of things are expensive. China is expensive. It's because it's expensive and it's delicate, and you don't want anyone touching or playing with it because it can get damaged. But a lot of things are expensive that you use, like shiny you use. Now the candelabra, even if it's let's cost $5,000 in a silver lifetime, not necessarily is it in that status. Not necessarily. I'll have to look into it. Maybe it's very expensive because it's not necessarily a delicate item that you can't touch it, you can't move it. Let me look into it more. Could be if it's very expensive, maybe it is, but generally speaking, it's not in that category just because it's expensive. That's because it's expensive and it's very delicate. Anyway, something to think about. But generally speaking, a candelabra is not absolute Muktzeh. Now, if you use it on Shabbos, then it will become absolute Muktzeh because the candles, when you light candles, the candle as it's burning is absolute Muktzeh. And because it's absolute Muktzeh when Shabbos comes in, it retains its status. So what happens is there's something called basis, a base. So really this is not a separate topic, but it's all, everything is tied into each other. I'll explain this. Basis means a base. So like this. So let's first discuss a box of candles in your closet. A box of candles. What's the status of the box of candles on Shabbos? Non-absolute Muktzeh. But when it's burning, then it becomes absolute Muktzeh because fire is absolute Muktzeh. And the candle is a base. In this Aramaic language, basis, in English it's also base, same, very similar. It becomes a base to the Muktzeh. So it becomes like the Muktzeh. And because when Shabbos came in, it was lit before Shabbos. So the candle was absolute Muktzeh. So the candle retains that status, even if, let's say, it's extinguished later on, for whatever reason. The candle retains that status of absolute Muktzeh. And the Leichter, the candelabra, that the candle is sitting on the Leichter, the lighter becomes a base for the candle. So when Shabbos comes in, just like the fire is absolute muktzeh, the candle is absolute muktzeh, and the lighter is absolute muktzeh also because it's a base, becomes a base for that, so it gets the same status. And the table also becomes a base for muktzeh. The table also becomes absolute muktzeh. I'm not discussing when you put chalas on the table. That's why you put on the table. There's no chal on the table. So if you now we're discussing specifically was lit before Shabbos, not on Shabbos. Waiting, of course, it can't light in Shabbos. Okay, someone else lit it. It doesn't matter. The knowledge lit it. The idea is that it's specifically discussing when it was lit before Shabbos, because when Shabbos came in, it's muktzeh. So there's two things going on there. We're saying when Shabbos came in, it was muktzeh. It remains muktzeh the whole Shabbos. That's one thing. Now I'm filling in the specifics over here, and we're discussing also the idea of a base that because when Shabbos came in, there was muktzeh on it, the candle was lit, and the fire is muktzeh. So we're saying the candle is a base for the candle, for the fire. The candelabra, the lighter is a base for the candle. The table is a base. One is a base, one for the next, and everything becomes absolute muktzeh, just like the fire itself. And then when the fire goes out, it retains that status. Everything retains that status because of this rule, Muktzeh machmas isra ben hashmashas. Because when Shabbos came in, it was Muktzeh, it remains Muktzeh the entire Shabbos. Yeah.
You said that you got putting it all on a table.
So I'm explaining that I'm saying over here everything becomes muktzeh. You're like 1 second. I never heard this before, so I'm saying correct because we put chal on the table. It solves the issue. I'm discussing a regular without putting the chal on the table.
What if you don't like
Just the way it is in itself. If you wouldn't be putting chal on the table, this table. If you would light candles on this table before Shabbos came in, and then next morning, it's not there anymore. Well, it went out, and you have a non-Jew in the house, clear the table, it's clear. This table becomes absolute muktzeh, and you cannot move it at all. Even if you need a space, you're not allowed to move the table. The table is clear, there's nothing on it. It doesn't matter. The table is absolute muktzeh. Yeah.
So I have like a little wall in my apartment that I don't eat on, but I do like candles on it. And then I have my father's plant on it. Now sometimes I will like pull up the chair and just sit and read on that table because that's the light is. So, like that's technically.
So you're saying if the table is muktzeh, could you read by the table?
Yeah,
That's a question.
Well, like last Shabbos, I could like chat at the table, like have my book on it and reading on the table. Like,
Right. Technically,
I do that.
Okay, so if you're lighting, we said the table becomes absolute muktzeh. Now, what is the halacha with absolute muktzeh? You're not allowed to move with your hands, you can move with your body. Could you make use out of it? Yes, you could. You're allowed to use muktzeh. You could sit on muktzeh, you just can't move it. A tree you can't use at all. Certain things the Chacham prohibit us to use, like a tree, animals. But muktzeh you're allowed to use as long as you're not moving it. Now, you might want to put chal on it before Shabbos because if you're using the table and you are using it and then you're leaning on it, and then you might mistakenly move the table. It's a good idea to make sure that's the reason why you put chal on the table. Chal ensures that the table is not muktzeh. We'll discuss later the reasons. But why everyone puts chal on the table now? Why? And sometimes you have a table that's sturdy, it doesn't move. But it's like an insurance. You want to later on Shabbos, all of a sudden you realize you need to move the table, or sometimes the table is not sturdy. So you put chal on the table. It's insurance, so you don't have any issues later. There's still restrictions, but we'll get to it. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once I went to and we was like we got a Friday night and we got there early and they were like, oh, do you mind setting up? And then the man moved the candelabra because he put a book there before Shabbos on the candelabra.
One thing I missed you. He put a book on the candelabra.
Yeah, like on the base.
On the base.
Yeah,
You mean, there's okay.
Yeah.
I'm putting a safe in it.
yeah.
And so you're asking, is putting on the base instead of putting on the table?
And then he said, oh, now I can move the candelabra because I put the safer there.
On the base. Okay, so the Chatchila, I'll put it this way, according to most opinions, it only helps putting challah when putting it on the table itself, not when you're putting it on the base.
I'm saying like, then the whole candelabra moved, like you moved the whole thing to somewhere else.
We say base, you mean there's like something, a tray under the lighter, right?
Yeah, or like the
The
actual
tray.
candelabra, like if it was actually like this, and then the book was here.
Where did he put the book on the lighter itself?
Yeah. On the like third.
No. That doesn't work for sure. That's out of the question. It doesn't help to put first of all, it should be challah. Challah is the preferable way to do it.
Okay.
So hanging challah on your candelabra doesn't work at all, according to all opinions. It's out of the question. What's the thing? It has to be on the table. Now, if you have a tray under the light and you want to put challah on the tray, even then, most opinions don't agree to it. There are some who say it's okay, but most don't, because the tray is not meant. The tray is specifically designated for life, but not to put a challah on it. So it doesn't work. There are some lenient opinions, but it's not lechatchila. It should be on the table itself. Yeah.
But it's solid concept in general. Like why is it allowed?
What is it up with challah? Okay. So wasn't really planning to go into this today, but we sort of bumped into it, so we're going to discuss it. The idea is like this: when you're putting challah before Shabbos, so what you're accomplishing now is that now the table is not just a base for Muktzeh, it's also a base for non-Muktzeh. In other words, when the table is a base for Muktzeh, it becomes like the Muktzeh itself, it's a base for Muktzeh. But if it's a base for Muktzeh, non-Muktzeh, now we say, hey, it's not just a base for Muktzeh, it's also a base for non-Muktzeh too. Okay, now that's not the end of the story. The way we look at it is as follows. We say, what? 1 second, which one is more valuable? If the Muktzeh is more valuable, then it's called the base for Muktzeh. If the non-Muktzeh is more valuable, then you say, oh, it's a base. Now we go according, it's a base for both, but that becomes the primary base. The primary function of the base for the non-Muktzeh. So we're putting specifically challah because challah has more value than the light there. Why is that? In other words, when you set before Shabbos, there may be cutlery on the table. You may be setting the table with china. So you also have permitted items on the table besides the light there. Why do we put challah? Challah is preferable because challah carries more importance than the light there. Why is that? There's a mitzvah to have a suda, a meal of Shabbos, and there's a mitzvah to light candles. What is more important? What is more? They're both important. But hypothetically speaking, and back in the old days, it wasn't so hypothetical. A person didn't have enough money. He only has one coin. What should he buy with the coin? A candle or a piece of bread for Shabbos? What takes priority? There's a mitzvah to eat by the light. You should have a candle or have something to eat. Well, if you light a candle, nothing to eat, so what's the point, right? So the halacha says, priority goes to the piece of challah, buy a challah than a candle. So challah has more importance than candles. So that's the reason why we specifically put challah. Challah is the preferred item to put. There are opinions that say you could also put a sefer, because the sefer is also kosher. It's not as good as challah. Challah is the best thing to put.
And it has to be like, it's just fine on the table. Or just
Supposed
be like
to.
next to the, so you have like a dining.
It doesn't have to be next to the light. Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be next to the light. No, it has to be on the table. Then it has to be placed there before Shabbos comes in. It doesn't help after it's already dark and then you put challah on the table. The idea is when Shabbos comes in, because everything goes according to what happens when Shabbos comes in. When Shabbos comes in, it becomes a base for Muktzeh. But when Shabbos came in, was also a base for non-muktzeh, and the non-muktzeh is more valuable, more important than the muktzeh. Now, the chatchila should be placed before candle lighting, because for the women, that's when they accept Shabbos, when they light candles. So the chatchila, you make sure that the challah should be on the table before you light candles. But if it wasn't there before you lit candles, and it was placed there before the sun set, it's also fine. B'diavad, that's also fine.
Sorry.
Saying the challah should the chatchila be placed before you light candles, because that's when Shabbos comes in. The idea is it's supposed to be there before Shabbos comes in. When Shabbos comes in, you already have both. But if you didn't and you put it before sunset, it's also fine, because that's, in terms of the time of Shabbos, that's when Shabbos comes in. So that's also fine. But the proper thing is to put it there before you light candles, because that's when Shabbos comes in for you. Now, there are items that are muktzeh, but you could cause it to become non-muktzeh before Shabbos. It should come from it. For example, many times, I know sometimes in the country you go places and the windows are not holding. You open up the window and it falls down. So people take a piece of plywood or something and they stick it into the window to hold the window open. So comes Shabbos, you want to open the window. No, this window doesn't work. It's going to fall down on you. Okay, I'll find a piece of wood, stick it in. The piece of wood is muktzeh. So you don't have to do that in Shabbos? No, but I'm going to use it. But it is, right, absolute muktzeh, right? We discussed it, it's absolute muktzeh. Now, but before Shabbos, I'll designate it. Now, it's not muktzeh because I decided before Shabbos, I designated, I made, okay, this is going to be my window holder. Well, you have to designate it permanently. What does it mean permanently? Permanently doesn't mean, well, now you better make sure you use it until you're 120. That's not what it means. It means that as of now, I'm designating on the permanent use. This is going to be what I'm going to use. I might decide one day to buy something else, but it's not just for this Shabbos. You're deciding this is going to be the piece I'm using all the time now for the window. I'm going to be using it for Shabbos, for Sunday, for Monday. This is the thing I'm using now for the window. So if you designate it before Shabbos, now it becomes a functional item because you designate it before Shabbos. You can't designate on Shabbos. Why? We said once Shabbos comes in, it's muktzeh. Remains muktzeh the whole Shabbos. Okay. Think there's any other examples that we missed over here? Oh, okay. So a car. Let's go back to the car. Are you allowed to sit on the car on Shabbos? Hmm? If you don't move it, you want to sit in a car. A car is not absolute muktzeh. Even if a car was absolute muktzeh, you would still be allowed to sit on absolute muktzeh if you don't move with your hands. Now, with a car, to get up on the car, you have to push yourself onto the car and to prop yourself up on the car, right? So using your hands. So the question is, halachically, are you allowed to do such a thing on Shabbos? The hands of the car, push yourself up and sit on the car. Is that allowed?
Does moving mean like move the car like from the spot or like, I don't know, if you like pushing the car, sometimes it like.
You move it in its own space. So moving muktzeh is prohibited. Well, any type of movement of muktzeh is prohibited, even if it stays in its place. But if you're moving it a little bit, it's still prohibited. Generally, when we talk about the prohibition of muktzeh, the question is it being moved at all? Or when you're pushing down, usually it's very normal. I think if you're pushing down the car to get up, you're going to be moving the car a little bit. So that is considered moving muktzeh. We said in another class that it's not usual to have a partial movement only by animals, but here we have another example that it could be a partial movement, which that's called moving muktzeh. So my question is that allowed on Shabbos? No. Why? What's the status of a car? Absolute muktzeh or non-absolute muktzeh? Here you see also, even though a car is expensive, is it absolute muktzeh? No, because that's not doing necessarily with the price and what it's cost. That's still, if it's expensive and it's delicate, you're particular about not touching the car. I mean, it could be some people like that, but I'm saying a car is not a delicate item that you can't touch. It's absolutely expensive, but it's non-absolute muktzeh. So are you allowed to do such a thing on Shabbos? You're allowed to move a non-absolute muktzeh for the purpose of its space or for its use in a permitted way. So what does that tell you? There's nothing wrong. Generally, when people see someone doing that on Shabbos, say, car, it's muktzeh. Now, I'm not saying that this is what people should be doing in Shabbos, jumping in cars. I'm talking about the halacha. Halachically, there's nothing wrong. Because even if you're moving the car, why are you moving it? To use it in a permitted way. Right? To use it in a permitted way. You're going to drive the car? No. You want to sit on the car. Nothing wrong to sit on the car. So logically, there's no problem putting your hands in the car and sitting yourself on the car. Now, we discussed paper. We said paper is muktzeh. So it's also important to keep in mind, many times people have loose leaves and they have blank paper in there. And you don't think about it, and you have written paper and blank paper. And it's not so common that but it could now this could be different. When you have the paper is actually part of it, that's different. We're talking about a loose leaf where you add paper inside. So if you have loose leaf, you're adding paper. So you have blank paper and regular paper. So on Shabbos, you have to be careful if you're opening up to read something. Now, the loose paper, the blank paper that's loose, will be muktzeh. Now, this is probably different. I have to double check. It's probably different because it's one item. It's one thing. So it has both. Yeah, if it's totally blank, if you have a fresh loose leaf like that, a loose leaf a binder that's nothing written in it, it's going to be muktzeh, but it's just blank paper. But if you have you wrote things inside, so then it's not going to be muktzeh because it's one item, it's one thing. So it shouldn't be muktzeh, but I'm going to double check about that. There's a discussion about it. It could be, just want to double check that it's actually not muktzeh to move the other papers.
And so if you have like a binder, and like a loose leaf. We don't have, loose leaf, but it's a binder, like you can find it in. You have like written papers and non-written, and you want to get to the.
You mean this loose paper that you put in and take out?
Yeah.
With the holes, right?
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
mentioned before. So when it's loose paper, you can put in and out. That loose paper is going to be muktzeh.
Then like if you want, let's say like a 5-section like this, and you only get to the back section that you wrote in, but the other sections are loose, can you do that? Like, that's the dividers, and like it's the written pictures in the back.
I have to look into it.
It actually happens if I take home my notebooks and like want to look over it for a shop and feel like it could be different stories.
Right, so you, to get to the back, you have to be moving all those papers, all the loose papers.
Yeah. Usually I have a notebook, but I get it.
Right. I'm going to look into it. It's a show Friday, we'll discuss it. Yeah. Yeah, if it's written inside, if you have writing inside, if it's one item, if it's one thing, it's one binder, and it's written inside, you have some empty papers, but it's one thing, it shouldn't be an issue. But if it's loose papers, that it's an issue. I'm going to look into it more to give you an exact.
For that notebook, like specifically, they're just long papers.
the really this side of the paper and that side, they're all. For that, like